It's recap time for UFC 103, Franklin versus Belfort. If I can get my camera to focus on me. There we go. Alright, just back from the bar. Saw, what was a pretty good night of fights considering, what the card promised. I mean, when you look at, when I've looked at this card on paper and what it delivered, I'd say it over-delivered actually a little bit. Had some good fights, got to see some good undercard bouts. I did not get to see the prelim showdown Spike because the bar we went to did not get Spike TV. It was kind of disturbing, and they wouldn't. I think it was also on the pay-per-view channel, but they didn't go to it, so whatever. Anyways, starting from kind of how the order we saw them in. Tyson Griffin versus Hermes Franca. Fight kind of went largely like I thought it would. Franca's striking is powerful, but not technically proficient. He's not terribly fast either. And he could not take Tyson down, basically. And Tyson Griffin wins via a knockout. I did not think he had the power to finish Hermes, because Hermes has got a pretty good chin. And I've never been overly impressed with Tyson Griffin's KO power. I mean, in the UFC we have... He's a decision machine, really. With beating Aurelio and so on by decision. Still, one of the bigger wins of his career, even though it was a bit on short notice. Hermes Franca apparently has changed his nickname to the Unreal, or he had that before and I just never noticed. Either way, whatever. His hair was terrible with the purplish pink with blonde. That's not a good look. You've had better. Josh Koscheck versus Frank Trigg. Frank Trigg complained about the stoppage on this one. Ended by a TKO in the first round. Basically, Koscheck kind of, continuing to show that his striking is not really to be laughed at. Even though it is predictable, it is oddly effective. So, go figure. For what Tyson Griffin's next, I would love to see Tyson Griffin fight someone who has a striking game that is not a BJJ black belt. See, if they were a BJJ black belt and also a kickboxer, that would work, actually, for me. Ideas that came to mind immediately were, I would love to see a rematch with Clay Guida, but he is detained elsewhere. Possibly a Gray Maynard fight, possibly a fight with Joe Stevenson, maybe? Be another idea. I know none of those are strikers, but the preponderance is we just don't really seem to have a lot of... lightweight seems to be a bit deficient on striking, from a striking standpoint. For Koscheck, for Franca, might get released even. I mean, he's still not on the greatest terms with the UFC. If he isn't, I would like to see him fight... Let's go with... No. I really don't know what fight would compel me to watch Hermes Franca. Go figure. As for Koscheck, moving up the ladder, who knows? Maybe he's entitled to contention, even though he does have a loss to GSP because the Swick and Kampman fight is broken down, and Kampman, of course, lost this evening, which we'll get to. So the whole 170-pound number one contender is kind of void at the moment. Maybe it is Koscheck. I would like to see a fight with Carl Perusian. That would be my pick for a fight. Moving on. As for Frank Trigg, I don't care. Moving on, Martin Kampman versus Paul Daly. Paul Daly winning by knockout, or was it a TKO? It was a TKO. Yeah, he was still standing, so it really couldn't have been a knockout. Daly just basically outstriking Martin Kampman, doing his thing. Martin tried one takedown. That was really what I would call an attempt versus desperation. Didn't work. I stand by my pick of picking Kampman. I think, if with a better game plan, he would have won this fight. But I think he was too willing to stand and trade with Paul Daly, which is something you don't do because Daly had a power advantage, and it looked like he had the better striking on a technical level too. Although coming into the fight, I thought Kampman's striking was somewhere in the neighborhood in speed and technique, just not in the neighborhood of power. And anyways, Paul Daly wins. What do I want to see from Semtex? Semtex is one of those weird fighters because, you know, he's only going to really put up interesting fights with strikers, really, or guys he can stop the takedowns of. Actually, those aren't very interesting because he's just going to knock them out. Semtex versus Thiago Alves would be too far up the ladder, I think. And again, welterweight's kind of deficient on the strikers as well. That's why it's kind of hard to put these stylistic matchups that are good. I don't know. As for Campman, it's a step down the ladder, of course. He can't fight Mike Swick now. Perhaps he fights Paulo Thiago. That would be a fight I would kind of be interested in seeing. See how his ground game in wrestling really is. Or maybe a guy like... I don't know. That's I'm gonna stick with that. I think Paulo Thiago is the guy to put up Martin Campman against. Next up was an undercard bout between Rafael Dos Anjos and Rob Emerson. Dos Anjos, impressive striking from what we had previously seen. Good takedown defense from Emerson. But aside from that, Emerson really needs to learn how to check leg kicks. I would not be surprised if he has some reasonably serious damage in his leg after that fight, because that was what we call ugly. That being said, where does Emerson go? Out of the UFC, I hope. I think that's only one loss in a row, but this is one of those guys that I think has been given too many chances. No, he's lost 2 in a row. Actually, lost to Kurt Pellegrino. Yeah, so out of the UFC would be my wish. Dos Anjos, he's 1-2 in the UFC. He is a BJJ black belt. He has only lost to really good competition. Well, I guess Jeremy Stevens is somewhat debatable. Perhaps a matchup with... For some reason, I'm kind of interested in seeing him fight Cole Miller. Just me, though, I think. But I would also take... maybe use him as a gatekeeper. Bring in somebody new to fight him, and if they can beat Dos Anjos, they move on to bigger and better things. After that, we had Crow Cop versus Dos Santos. Crow Cop again looking kind of spooked by the cage, and he hasn't seemed to shrug that off, and now it's a 5th UFC fight. And I think that pretty much speaks for itself. Dos Anjos, I kind of want to say he impressed me because his striking looked good. At the same time, Crow Cop really didn't impress me, and thus that kind of took away from what is still a very quality win for Dos Santos, but it wasn't the most impressive display. I would like to see Dos Santos check Congo personally. Crow Cop, I assume he's still in the UFC because they're paying him big money, and they'll want a marquee fight on him too. Maybe try and feed him a wrestler. Maybe Cain Velasquez, but you know, well, actually, that can't really backfire because Velasquez's credit's a little bit damaged with his fight with Congo and his chin. So not getting knocked out by Crow Cop would be a huge thing. A win over Crow Cop would be a big feather in his hat. So Cain Velasquez, he might have a fight signed already. A lot of these guys probably do. I'm kind of not thinking about that as I name these. Then the main event was Rich Franklin versus Vitor Belfort. Vitor Belfort, winner via not the overwhelming I think some people predicted. There was a lot of feeling out in this fight, a lot of circling, a lot of, you know, make the first move, I'm going to try and counterpunch. He caught Franklin, and that's kind of really about it. Finished him up with a couple shots on the ground. It was I don't know, having only seen it once, I didn't particularly care for the stoppage, but I didn't particularly object to it. Still, where do they go from here? It depends on whether Rich is going to fight 205 or 185. I mean, if he's going to fight 205, maybe a fight with someone to kind of build on. So something kind of above Matt Hamill, perhaps. I don't know. I kind of want to see him fight Bisping at 185, so that would be my 185 pick. But at 205, probably something like maybe Elliot Marshall, who won today. Maybe that I think would be an entertaining fight. As for Belfort, he's pretty much guaranteed he's going down to 185, and Bisping is another good fight to throw at him there. Perhaps he's more of a title contender, and maybe you should fight Dan Henderson again. There you go. On the undercard, Rick Story with a impressive submission via arm triangle in full guard, and we also got a win by the unanimous decision, which I didn't agree with, for Nick Lentz. But that was just me. Maybe other people agreed with that. Anyways, I'm overtime, so that's it. Peace out.